and then practicing self-compassion. So we all know mom guilt is a thing. We know we're really hard on ourselves. So starting to practice self-compassion while you are pregnant can help you then continue the practice. So talking kindly to yourself, mindfulness practice, recognizing that you're not alone. And that could involve joining a mom group like you have, or other mom communities.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today in this episode of Mom Talks with Krista. Today we have Jessica, who is a psychologist, and we're going to be talking all about postpartum anxiety from her perspective and actually through going through it herself as well, and just kind of different stigmas about being a psychologist and having postpartum anxiety. So many questions to address today. Thanks for being here, Jessica.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on and talk about this topic. You know, like we kind of discussed, is we've covered postpartum anxiety before, but we get it from different perspectives, and everyone goes through it a little bit differently as well. So before we kind of get to that though, can you just tell us a little bit about you and what you do and all that?
Of course. So, like you said, I'm Jessica. I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I work in a children's hospital. So, I work with 0 to really 24, working mostly with chronically ill children on the medical inpatient side, anxiety, depression, as well as eating disorders and LGBTQ health. So really busy there. I am a first-time mom to a 6-month-old daughter, which is weird to say that she's already 6 months. And additionally, I enjoy like creating mental health content online, with the goal of really making mental health more accessible, relatable, and destigmatizing mental health.
Awesome. I love that. I love anything that helps destigmatize it, because I think now we're seeing more and more people talk about it and be more open and vulnerable. But I feel like for like growing up, we didn't hear about it as much.
Yeah.
And it was kind of kept under the wraps and stuff. So I love hearing about just people kind of sharing their vulnerabilities with it. You talk a little bit about your experience, your personal experience with postpartum anxiety, as how during, pregnancy and, your maternity leave, once your baby was born, really paying attention to the signs and being super aware of it. And then when it came on, you said it was just kind of, you weren't expecting it. So Can you talk a little bit more about your experience?
So one, being a psychologist, obviously, I am well aware of the symptoms of postpartum anxiety, depression, OCD, all of that. And I just have a history of anxiety and depression myself. So I knew at baseline I was at higher risk. So, during the perinatal time while I was pregnant, I was looking out for symptoms. And I mean, I experienced some anxiety, but nothing out of the ordinary of any pregnant woman just worrying about her baby. And once I had my daughter, I was still on the lookout and really didn't experience any significant anxiety or low mood other than, the quote unquote baby blues and things like that. And I remember actually having a conversation with one of my brother-in-laws at about probably 10 weeks postpartum. And he was like, honestly, like, I thought you were going to be a lot more anxious, like knowing you. And I was like, I know, it surprised me too. And then a week before I went back to work, so I took 12 weeks. I feel very lucky living in the US getting to take 12 weeks off. I started feeling really anxious about going back to work, and I was crying every day, and I was just really worried about leaving my daughter. And I remember she's in daycare, and we went to the daycare just to kind of re-meet everybody, meet the kids. And I knew she was going to be safe and well taken care of, but I came home and just started crying. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. The day came, I returned to work. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. I was like, okay, so maybe I was just anxious, anticipatory anxiety, and this is going to be okay. And my first week back to work was actually like really easy, in the sense of like, I had a slow transition in on the outpatient side. I didn't schedule clients. It was more just calling them, saying I'm back. On the inpatient side, everybody let me kind of ease into it. And I was like, okay, maybe this isn't that bad. And then once I got into the depths of work, I started noticing I was having a lot of anxiety about my daughter, about work, about my relationship with my husband. I wasn't sleeping well. I was having nightmares, a lot of stomach issues, catastrophic thinking. And I was like, okay, here's the anxiety that I was expecting to have 12 weeks ago. And now it's coming on at 3.5 months postpartum.
Wow. You're kind of expecting it all this time
Mhm.
and it doesn't happen. And so then when it does happen, are you like, okay, now's the time, like I need to look for some outside help? Or did you first try to, you know, being in the industry
Mhm.
of, helping with mental health, where you're like, okay, I know what I need to do. I'm going to try to help myself first. Like, what were your kind of like your thought process and your steps after that?
So I definitely tried to help myself first. And I think for a while I was like telling myself, oh, this is just like normal transition back to work. Like, it's going to be hard transitioning back to work. So maybe I just do some journaling and deep breathing and, taking time for myself. And I tried that for a couple of weeks. And then I realized that that was not enough. And I remember saying to myself, like, Jess, you are a psychologist. You tell people all the time there's no shame in getting help. But honestly, part of my concern was like, how do I add therapy appointments on top of me already being so stressed and overwhelmed? And I know teletherapy isn't for everyone, but one of the benefits that COVID has had is made therapy more accessible via telehealth.
Mhm.
And so that was something I particularly looked for. I was like, can I find a therapist that I could do telehealth? Because then that takes out the driving and things like that and fit more into my schedule. But I definitely tried some things by myself first. Because, yeah, we tell ourselves, oh, we know what to do, but it's different when it's us, if that makes sense. Like we have all the skills, but sometimes we still need extra help or an outsider's perspective.
Right. Yeah. I think it's definitely hard to like look outside ourselves sometimes, or we tell ourselves that the advice we want to hear instead of what we need to hear, or something we wouldn't normally want to do, or, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It came on really strongly at work. So do you
Mm-hmm.
now have, like, as most of us know, with mental health, it's not just one appointment and you're good to go. It's a constant like upkeep or different tactics or tips that you do throughout the day to kind of make it better. So do you have things that you do now? So like when you go to work, you kind of address your anxiety and kind of feel better?
So, yeah, so I'm still in therapy. I go to therapy weekly. And part of that is just even when there's weeks that I'm not nearly as anxious, it's nice to have an hour a week where it's just about me and I can just talk about my struggles for the week. A big thing I've started doing is setting boundaries at work. One thing I realized, which highly contributed to my anxiety going back to work, is that prior to having a kid, I spent most of my time at work. Like I didn't need to leave at 4 or 5 to get home to take care of my daughter. And my husband works a lot too. So, I would stay at work till 6:30 p.m. because I could. And now that I have a kid, I realized, oh, hey, I was putting in like 60 hours a week at work, and that's not where my priorities lie anymore. So, setting boundaries with myself and with other people. So, you know, leaving work on time or saying, no, I can't do those certain things, taking breaks during the day to pump. So, I am breastfeeding and supplementing with formula because one of the other stressors and anxieties was when I went back to work, my supply depleted, but I was originally pumping and doing work at the same time. And then that would stress me out. So I have an office. So I just close my office door, put a sign up, and use that as me time, whether that is scrolling through Instagram or doing something super non productive, or deep breathing or grounding techniques, and just listening to music, getting myself like me time helps a lot with anxiety. I also have started, I've listened to podcasts forever, but started listening to a lot of podcasts, yours and other ones that specifically focus on maternal mental health or mom related issues, because that has really made me feel a lot less alone. Like I'm not the only one that is going through this. Looking at pictures of my daughter during the day has really helped when I'm away from her as well. And then just a lot of journaling and writing, which, like I said, I did do initially before I sought out therapy, but now it seems less forced as like I'm doing this as a coping skill, more so like, this is a really stressful time at work today. So I am just going to I have a paper planner still because I'm one of those people that loves paper planners.
Same.
And yeah, I can't, I
Best.
mean, everything at work is digital, but like I still write in my paper planner, but it has room for like notes and stuff. So I'll just take it out and write down some of the things that are bothering me and on my heart and mind. And that's really helped as well.
Yeah, I think you made a couple good points about not only helping yourself or doing things for yourself when you're in crisis mode. Because I think a lot of times when something's bad or, we hit that rock bottom or we need to make a change, we're like, as soon as we start feeling good, we're like, oh, I don't need to do that anymore.
Mhm.
And we instantly, drop the habit when in reality, you're feeling good because of those habits.
Yes.
So I think that was a really good point there about even, not just your regular days, you'll still journal. And even when you're feeling good, you'll still talk to your therapist. You don't cancel
Mhm.
the meeting. Cause I know it's a very normal thing is people are like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm good now. So I don't need to do that. And your body's kind of like, at least with me, like, I'll be like, oh, okay, I don't need to do that. And you kind of like go down this path. You're like, I'm fine. And then all of a sudden your body's like, wait, hold on. What happened to all those routines and those things you were doing before? So I think it's a great point.
Exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you made a really good point by saying like you're feeling better because you're doing these things. And that's a very common thing. Like, oh, now I'm in a good place. And the things that we made a priority to get us to that place no longer become a priority. And then we wonder why we no longer feel as good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's awesome. And then that's great too about setting boundaries at work because I think boundaries in general, especially when you have a new baby, is so, so important because I hear it all the time from the moms in our mom group about, someone wants to come over today or they just showed up and
mhm.
I wasn't ready for a guest, over the house, or I'm supposed to do this. And I think setting healthy boundaries to make yourself whatever works best for your family and your
Mhm.
mental health is super important.
Oh, it definitely is. And speaking of like just broader anxiety outside of work, that's really important to help reduce your anxiety, even if you're not a working mom. So, setting boundaries, like you said, with people not coming over, because if you are so anxious that you have to clean the house or you feel like you have to entertain people, that's not going to be helpful for you. So, setting the boundary of who can come over when, or for me, my immediate family doesn't live local, but my husband's family does. And they wanted to be helpful by inviting us over for dinner so we don't have to cook, but it became really overwhelming for me because I'm like, I'm packing a newborn up on a weekday after work. And so I finally said, like, we can't do it during the week anymore. Like, I can't, it's just too overwhelming and stressful for me. And setting those boundaries really helped reduce some of that in the moment anxiety about those certain things.
Yeah. And I think another thing to note too is a lot of times too with like people pleasers or like I always say I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Yeah.
I always say yes to people or I used to always say yes. You think setting a boundary or saying no to someone is mean or you're going to hurt their
Mhm.
feelings, but there's so many, like you just made an awesome example of like having a healthy boundary and just saying like, oh, this doesn't work for us because so we have to move those to once a month or, whatever
Mhm.
it is. So I know like a lot of moms listening out there might feel bad about saying no if they're used to saying yes to certain people. And it's like, it's okay. And anyone that loves you and respects you is going to respect your boundary that you set.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of quotes out there about boundaries, but one thing, because I do a lot of boundary setting, especially with my teen clients, is that if somebody gets upset about the boundary you set, it's because it's not serving them in a way that they want to be served. So you made a very good point. Anybody that loves and respects you is going to respect your boundaries and just being clear about it and saying, like, I can't do this because, and we have not had any issues with that, my daughter is very loved and people are very excited because she's the first grandchild, niece, whatever, on both sides. But at the same time, they understand like we're new parents and things can get stressful and overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. That's a great point to have. So for anyone listening, that might kind of be in a similar boat where they're like, okay, I am a normally anxious kind of person. Like maybe they're currently pregnant or, and they're kind of in the same boat where they're like thinking like, okay, I don't know if it's going to come on strong or how it would come on. Do you have any like coping techniques for, I don't want to say like before that time, but almost like just to kind of like get them mentally strong, in their postpartum journey, I guess I would say.
One thing I would say, just first, just be aware. So if you're already thinking like, oh, I might be anxious, retrospectively, I probably should have just started seeing a therapist before I recognized that I was really anxious. So that is also a possibility if therapy is accessible to you, because I do recognize in our country it is a privilege for many. But plan ahead as much as possible. So, like we are just talking about boundary setting. So, if you know that having a bunch of people coming over to your house is going to be overwhelming or increase your anxiety, delegate certain tasks. So, I know mom is going to really want to come and snuggle with the baby, but what would be more helpful is mom cooking dinner so I don't have to. And that's going to reduce some of my worry of how do I take care of a newborn and cook dinner at the same time. Prepping in the sense of your self-care. I think this is really important because as new moms, the focus is all on the baby. And a lot of women or parents in general let go of their self-care and like even the basics, like don't shower, brush your teeth. So think about, what are my non-negotiables for self-care? I want to make sure I shower every day. So, if you have a partner or somebody else that can watch the baby for that 5-10 minutes that you're in the shower, and kind of identify those things that you don't want to give up. Plan, if you have a partner, with your partner ahead of time, what are the responsibilities that we're all going to have, what our nighttime is going to look like. The more you can plan ahead, and plans always go astray as well, is going to help reduce anxiety. Or if there's particular things you think you're going to have anxiety about, whether it's leaving your child with a grandparent, or how am I going to balance going back to work? Talk to your work. What's it going to look like? I was actually listening to the episode, your episode today, about going back to work and talking about things like, where can I pump and things like that. So planning ahead. And any coping skills that you have now. So I tell people a coping skill is anything that makes you feel better. So listening to music, listening to podcasts, going for walks, whatever those things are, continue to do those things during pregnancy, postpartum, etc. And then two other things that I recommend, whether it's perinatal or postpartum, is values work. So what I mean by that is like identifying what do you value about becoming a parent, or also just as a human. So I value family time. I value learning new things, and try to identify ways that you can live out those values. So it's going to look different being a new mom. So maybe family time now, if you're childless, is just you and your partner, going out. You're probably not going to the bar, but going out or going to concerts. So maybe family time is like snuggling on the couch and watching a movie together postpartum. Or if you value learning things, like getting books that you can read to your baby, because the more we do things in alignment with our values, the happier we're going to be. And then practicing self-compassion. So we all know mom guilt is a thing. We know we're really hard on ourselves. So starting to practice self-compassion while you are pregnant can help you then continue the practice. So talking kindly to yourself, mindfulness practice, recognizing that you're not alone. And that could involve joining a mom group like you have, or other mom communities, recognizing that you're not the only one going through this, and relying on those supports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. The hardest thing is when you go through something, you instantly think, I'm the only one that feels this way, or I'm the only one that's going through this. And I think reaching out to a community or talking to someone like a therapist or a friend, or, it's going to help you realize that you have a tribe with you. You have other moms that go to bat for you and will, either have been through what you're going through, or know someone that has been through it and can just kind of be there for you. So I think that's awesome. And I think too, what you said about asking yourself what you value, I think that's super important. Even if you're listening and you're trying to conceive or you're pregnant right now, because I think sometimes as we get older, we kind of forget where our actual like value and our what makes us happy. We get kind of caught up in other things. So especially as your life changes with a new baby or other kind of things, it's good to kind of hold those values to you and realize what makes you happy. So I love that.
And that's exactly what it is. The things we value are the things that are going to make us happy. And doing those things, it doesn't mean you're necessarily not going to experience any anxiety or postpartum depression or anything like that. But the more you can do those things, it is going to help one buffer the intensity of those symptoms, but two, still give you something like sense of purpose or things that you do enjoy, because the more we're doing the things that we enjoy, the less we're hyper focusing on the things that are making us anxious or sad or depressed, etc.
And I wonder too if it has to do with like feeling like you are in control of something. Like you're like, oh, I journaled this morning because I wanted to, and it made me feel like my words mattered or my feelings mattered. Because I know a lot of moms talk about, just feeling kind of out of control the first, few weeks, because you're on someone else's time now, and you're kind of moving lower in the totem pole, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely. And with anxiety, there is that feeling and loss of control over whatever you're feeling anxious about. So I like that you brought up that point, because doing something that you value, it's like, yeah, I was able to sit down for 10 minutes and journal this morning, and it made me feel good. And it was something that I chose to do. It was in my control. And that's something I say to clients a lot as well with any type of anxiety is, what about this situation can you control? And if it's something that's out of your control, like it's easier said than done saying don't be anxious about it. And that's not a helpful thing to say. But if it's not something you can control, are there aspects of the situation that you can control that would reduce your anxiety? And if there aren't, can we challenge these anxious thoughts, or can we go focus on something else so that is not at the forefront of your mind?
That's a great point. Yeah, I love that. Finding aspects of the situation you can control. Awesome. So there's a lot of awesome takeaways and tips in this. So for moms listening that are kind of in a rough spot or feeling a little anxious about maybe going back to work, or just feeling anxious, maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and you're feeling anxious. I always like to say anxiety doesn't discriminate, it can hit anyone. And so I think it's just important to be, like you said, very aware and do those things that make you happy and feel valued and feel in control. Those are awesome, all awesome points. And so I always like to end these interviews with fun thinking questions, I call them. And so if you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
It is okay to ask for help. You don't have to do it alone.
Yes, love that. Yeah, that's great. We always like to say like how important community and your tribe is. And so if you feel alone, just reach out. That's the one really awesome thing about online communities is that, or I should say social media, is that there's this online community that we didn't have, 20 years ago. So
Exactly.
it's amazing. And so what advice would you give to new moms that are kind of in a hard spot right now? I know this episode was a lot about that, but what's a piece of advice for that mom that's listening right now that's kind of just dangling by that last thread that just needs some words?
So one thing I think is really helpful is asking yourself when you're in that hard spot, what do I need right now? And then identify how that need can be met. So do I need a break? Do I need a hug? Do I need a glass of water? Do I need to eat? Or do I just need somebody to listen to me or hold me while I cry? So asking yourself, what do I need right now? And is there a way to get that need met? That simple question can do a lot for you, because when we're really anxious or really overwhelmed, everything just seems so overwhelming. But if you pause and ask yourself, like, what is it that I really need? A lot of times the answer is really simple. It's not this really grand thing. It's like, I just need a hug. Like, I need somebody to hold me, or I need somebody to tell me it will be okay. And if somebody's not available, tell yourself, that it's going to be okay. Or I just need to know that I'm a good mom. Tell yourself that you're a good mom. So that would be probably my number one advice as a actual tool for moms out there, especially with anxiety. There's a really good book that is called Good Moms Have Anxious Thoughts by Karen Kleiman. And I used it. It's been recommended to me by my therapist, but I bought it before then. And it makes you feel a lot less alone. And there's also journaling prompts, which is a great help as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that advice, because I just think like what you said about, if you just ask yourself kind of what you need, because it's so true. Like I always think about if you're having a bad morning or something, and it could be because of the littlest thing. And then little things throughout the day can make you really mad, like things that you normally would not care about. Like it could be something small, like, I don't even know, like you spilled a glass of water or, whatever, something like that. And on days that something's bad, it just kind of piles on. So to ask yourself, what is it? It might just be, something small. Like, I feel like I need a friend to listen, or, I think that's a really great point about doing that. And just really being, it kind of goes back to being aware and in tune with yourself and what you need. That's great. So for anyone listening that kind of wants more insight from you, where can they find you, and other resources do you have?
So on Instagram, my handle is at Jessica Lee PhD. Lee is Leigh. I have my own podcast. It's called PsychTalk. So that's everything psychology, mental health, self-growth. And I've done a number of episodes on motherhood, maternal mental health, things like that, just being a new mom. And the other platform I'm on the most is TikTok. I was one of those people that joined during the quarantine and became addicted. I swore I never would. So my handle there is Jessica Lee PhD as well. And a lot of my content is mental health, a lot of mom related mental health stuff, postpartum. One thing I really wanted to do was be open about my postpartum journey online and on my platform to make people feel less alone. So, and that mixed within a bunch of other mental health content. So.
That's amazing. I can never get enough of it. I think it's just feel good, and you feel like you're a part of a community when you see just different posts or TikToks and reels about mental health. I think they're very impactful, because you just feel like, again, I'm not alone. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that a lot of people struggle feeling alone, or that they don't have anyone. So that's
definitely.
And we'll put all the links below in the show notes as well. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was so insightful, and just your tips and takeaways for so many moms out there, I think will be super helpful.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed talking.
Hey guys, if you found this or any episode of Mom Talks with Krista helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share it with your friends. We release new videos every single Wednesday, and our new podcast is out every single Thursday. So lots of different ways you can catch us. And of course, if you're not following us on our socials, go ahead and follow us there. We've got tons of new content for you every single day. And finally, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you're doing a great job. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.